Hello and welcome back to the Winning Agenda's Hero Spotlight series. My name's Jesse Marshall and I'm here with an interesting hero, one of probably the most evocative heroes in Flesh and Blood, and one that I certainly have loved to play, particularly recently. And I think with the recent bans of Plunder Run and Ball Lightning in the errata to Briar, Viserai has a fantastic shot at being a powerhouse in the metagame, really. It plays really differently to a lot of other Flesh and Blood heroes. It's got an extremely high power cap in terms of what it can do on one turn. And famously, there's a one-turn kill combo, which you can actually pull off in Blitz and Classic Constructed against a range of different opponents. So let's dive straight in. So the first thing to know about Viserai is all about Runechants. So Runechants are one of the kind of core Runeblade mechanics. So Viserai is a Runeblade hero. And Viserai's hero ability allows you to make more Runechants than you otherwise would using your cards. So you basically get these additional Runechant auras, which each pop off for 1 damage whenever you attack with a weapon or with an attack action card. So you get to stockpile these with Viserai more quickly than you would with any other Runeblade hero. So every time you try and generate Runechants, using your non-attack action cards, which is usually, pardon me, the way that you generate them, you'll be generating more. So what Viserai says is, whenever you play a Runeblade card, if you've played another non-attack action card this turn, create a Runechant token. So this creates, quite importantly, which we'll come to in a minute, a separate trigger of Runechant creation from Viserai's hero ability every time you play a Runeblade card if you've already played a non-attack action card this turn. So basically you play a non-attack at the start of your turn, and then every time you play a Runeblade card after that, you're getting an additional Runechant from Viserai's ability as a separate trigger. The reason that the separate trigger's important is, we'll come to in a minute, there is a card called Mordred Tide, which is a Majestic from Arcane Rising, that says whenever you would create a Runechant, you create an additional Runechant. So that means that if you play a non-attack action, then you play a Runeblade card that generates Runechants, you'll get Mordred Tide. Mordred Tide is your non-attack action, you've played at the start of the turn. Then you play a Runeblade card that generates Runechants, you'll generate 1 additional Runechant from the Mordred Tide ability. And then Viserai will trigger, because you've played a Runeblade card after a non-attack action. And Viserai will generate a Runechant, which will get turned into 2 from Mordred Tide. So Mordred Tide, in combination with Viserai's ability, can allow you to generate lots of Runechants in a single turn. But I guess Runechants, what do we do with them? So yes, we have ways to generate them, and they can stack up, but obviously every time you attack, either with a weapon or with an attack action card, they're all going to explode at once, which means it can be hard to stockpile them because it requires you not to be attacking and not to be putting pressure on your opponent. So if you're going to be playing this game of just kind of stockpiling heaps of Runechants and then trying to hit your opponent all at once, you need to have a way to make that turn when you're popping all the Runechants really impactful. The other way you can play Viserai is to just generate a few Runechants here and there, maybe get up to 4 or 5, and then play an attack action card, which will hopefully be, you'll hopefully play a non-attack action first, then an attack action, something like Spellblade Assault, which we'll come to, which generates 2 Runechants when you play it. Then you'll get a Runechant from Viserai's ability. So after you've attacked and popped your 4 or 5 Runechants, you'll actually end up with 3 or 4 again, so that you can attack again the following turn and pop some more Runechants. So the Runechants in that kind of build are basically just adding a bit of additional damage to your attacks, because Viserai's attacks and the Runeblade attacks that you play in this deck that will generate Runechants tend to be a little bit inefficient. So you offset that inefficiency by having the additional Runechant damage coming in. But I think far and away the most interesting way to play Viserai and the most powerful way to play Viserai against most opponents is stockpiling Runechants and building up for one big turn, and then using the momentum from that one big turn to either kill your opponent immediately or continue keeping the pressure on until you can finish them off. So the way that you can execute that one big turn most efficiently and most effectively is using the Sonata Combo. So this is a 2-card combo. I guess if you count Runechants as a part of the combo, it's a 3-part combo. Involving Sonata Arcanics, which is a Majestic from Monarch, and Bloodsheath Skeletor, which is a Majestic from Crucible of War. So what Sonata Arcanics says is it's got a cost of XX, so you need to pay X twice, and then you reveal the top X plus 3 cards of your deck. For each non-attack action card revealed this way, put an attack action card revealed this way into your hand. Then deal arcane damage to target hero equal to the number of cards put in your hand this way. Shuffle your deck and then banish Sonata Arknight. Go again. So what Sonata allows you to do is if you can put heaps of resources into it and pay, say you can pay 10, X will be equal to 5, and you'll look at the top 8 cards of your deck or reveal them. For each non-attack you reveal, you put an attack action into your hand. So you can basically turn the Sonata, pardon me, into multiple cards off the top of your deck, all of which will be attack actions equal to the number of non-attacks you reveal. So when you're building a Viserai deck around this combo, it's obviously important to make sure you've got a good ratio of non-attacks to attacks so that when you play your Sonata, you're going to be hitting as close to equal numbers of attacks and non-attacks as possible. But how do you get that X number high? So how do you get X equals 5 or X equals 6 or 7? By paying 10 or 12 or 14 resources into your Sonata. Obviously that's quite hard to do with a 4-card hand, even if they're all blues and you've got the Sonata in Arsenal, you pitch your 4 blues and you've only paid 12 resources, which is X equals 6. And you're probably not going to end up too far ahead of where you started with 4 cards in hand. The way you can generate a really huge turn is using Bloodsheath Skeletor and Runechants. So Bloodsheath Skeletor, it's a chess piece, so it's always on the board. So half of your combo, starts in play. It's got an instant ability, destroy Bloodsheath Skeletor. The next attack action card and non-attack action card you play this turn gain this card costs 1 less to play for each Runechant you control. So what you can do is you pop your Bloodsheath Skeletor, and if you've got, say, 12 Runechants in play, your Sonata Arknight will cost 12 resources less to play. So you can declare your Sonata Arknight at X equals 6, and then that will cost you 12 resources, but you get a 12 resource discount from your 12 Runechants you have in play. So you're basically playing Sonata for X equals 6 without putting any resources from your hand into it. You're just using the discount from the Skeletor that you've popped. This allows you to then say you've got X equals 6 or X equals 7. You'll be looking at 9 or 10 cards off the top of your deck, which will hopefully equal 4 or 5 attack action cards you'll put into your hand. And since you've invested no cards from your hand to start with, you'll end up with the 4 cards in hand, plus the 4 or 5 you're adding, so 9-ish cards in hand, and then you can try and have a really big turn. And you've also got 14 or 15 Runechants, ideally, even 10 to 12 Runechants, which are going to pop from your first attack. You're also going to get this discount from the Bloodsheath Skeletor on the first attack you play, because it's the next attack action card and non-attack action card you play, get the discount. And because you've played the Sonata first, you've still got all these Runechants in play when you play your attack, so your first attack will also get a discount. So how can we take advantage of this, and how can we build up the Runechants to make this worthwhile? There are a few cards in the Viserai card pool that will allow you to create Runechants without popping them. So importantly, there are several attack actions, Spellblade Assault I mentioned before, which will allow you to create Runechants, but they will also pop all your existing Runechants because they're attack actions. So you really need non-attack actions and equipment that will generate Runechants without popping all the ones you've already got. So there are a few that fit the bill. We've got Mordred Tide, which I mentioned earlier, which says, until end of turn, if you would create a Runechant, instead create that many +1, go again. So you have 3 Mordred Tides in your deck, in a classic constructed deck, and it's really important to utilize them effectively because they will allow you to go from a moderate number of Runechants to a little bit more, and that little bit more can be just enough to win the game a lot of the time. So utilize your Mordred Tides really effectively. You can combine it as a 2-card combo with Read the Runes. So you play Mordred Tide, it has Go Again. It says whenever you create Runechants this turn, create an extra one. You then play Read the Runes, which says create 3 Runechant tokens. So that 3 will become 4. Then Viserai's ability will trigger because you've already played the Mordred Tide, which is a non-attack action. And then you've played a Runeblade card, which is Read the Runes. So Viserai will create 1 Runechant, which will become 2 from Mordred Tide. So this 2-card combo will create 6 Runechants. And if you can string together a few turns in the game, in the first, say, 5 turns, where you're creating between 4 and 6 Runechants, you'll end up with, around 20, ideally. And that's a really good spot to then go off from. So that's the objective. Obviously, you can't control when you draw these cards, but if you do get them early in the game, then you can kind of go off quite early. You'll generally, Mordred Tides are majestic, so you've only got a red version. Read the runes as a common, so you can play the reds and the yellows. The yellow creates 2 Runechants, which is still a serviceable turn. You've got Rune Blood Barrier. It's another majestic, so there's only the 1 pitch version of it, so you can play 3 of these. It costs you 3 resources. It says create 4 Runechant tokens. So again, if you've played another non-attack action before it, then you play this. You can also trigger Viserai's ability to create an additional Runechant. It says if your hero would be dealt damage, instead destroy that many Runechants you control and prevent 1 damage that source would deal for each Runechant destroyed this way, and then at the beginning of your next action phase, you destroy Rune Blood Barrier. So for 1 turn cycle, it makes your Runechants into life points, I guess. So if your opponent manages to get any attacks through to you the following turn and hit you, you'll lose Runechants equal to the damage that they deal. So you do need to be a little bit careful with when you play Rune Blood Barrier, because you don't want to make your Runechants too vulnerable to getting hit. But a lot of the time, because of the structure of the deck, which we'll talk about in a minute, with lots of defense reactions and lots of cards that block, you'll generally be happy to pitch 3, play the Rune Blood Barrier, and then block with your whole hand the next turn. And then hopefully go off on a future turn with your Sonata Combo. Spellblade Assault, as I mentioned, is another way to generate Runechants. It's a perfectly good play at the beginning of the game when you don't have many, because it allows you to get in an attack but still generate back a few Runechants. So if you've played any non-attack action with Go Again, and then you play your Spellblade Assault, say you play a Morven Skies and then a Spellblade Assault, you'll pop maybe you've got 2 or 3 at the beginning of the game, you're on turn 2 or 3. You'll pop those ones, but then you'll generate 2 new ones plus 1 from Viserai's ability. So you'll sort of end up back where you started and you've got an attack in. Spellblade Assault is also really good after you have your big turn for continuing the momentum, because your opponent generally on your combo turn will block with their whole hand. And then on the following turns, you want to be keeping up the pressure as much as possible. So having these red Spellblade Assaults on the bottom will help you to do that. So I mentioned earlier that so that's how you generate your Runechants. So you're looking to use those cards I discussed in that last screen to generate your sort of 20 Runechants ideally, somewhere between 10 and 20 before you need to go off with your Sonata. These are the cards that are going to help you get there, because you're obviously not attacking and putting pressure on your opponent. So they're going to have a lot more cards in hand to come back at you with, and you need to have some powerful defensive cards to keep yourself alive until you get to your combo turn. So Reduce to Runechant is a really, really great card, because when you've got Runechants in play, which you will when you're playing this deck, it's free to play, and it's a 4 defense reaction that also generates a Runechant. So you're getting a little bit closer to your objective, and you're blocking a 0 for 4 basically, which is, as we know, a perfectly serviceable defense reaction ratio. You've then got the other red 0 for 4s, Fate Foreseen and Sink Below, both of which can be really good. Sink Below can let you put your combo pieces to the bottom if you draw them early in the game. Fate Foreseen can allow you to do the same thing off the top and manipulate your draws a little bit. You do need to be very careful with the number of defense reactions you play in your deck though, because if you don't draw them early and then you try and combo off and they're all lower in your deck, and you hit them on your Sonata turn, they don't contribute to your Sonata because they're not non-attack actions or attack actions. So that's a kind of delicate balancing act. It's one of the trade-offs you have to consider when you're building a Viserai deck. We've also got Sigil of Suffering, of course, as another sort of 0 for 4 defense reaction you can consider playing. But I would probably restrict myself to between 8 and 12 from amongst those options, and always play Reduce to Runechants. So how do you actually have a big combo turn? I guess this is the real meat of the deck. You've seen how you can set up the combo, what the 2-card combo is in terms of Skeleta and Sonata Arcanix, but what do you actually do on this combo turn to make it really impactful? So Rattlebones is a really confusing and interesting card, and it's a great one to have in Arsenal or just to have in your hand on your combo turn. Because remember that when you play your Sonata, you're going to be getting a whole lot of attack actions into your hand, and not have many non-attack actions necessarily. I mean, you're not going to get any non-attack actions off your Sonata. So having another non-attack action that will basically give you an action point or more, which we'll come to in a minute, means that you can extend that combo turn. Rattlebones is a great way to do that. So Rattlebones cost 2. It says banish target Runeblade attack action card from your graveyard. You may play it this turn. If you have dealt arcane damage to an opposing hero this turn, which you will with your Sonata, because it's going to deal hopefully 6 or 7 arcane damage that no deck's going to be able to block that much. you may play Rattlebones as though it were an instant and has go again. So because you've dealt arcane damage, you can play Rattlebones as an instant, which nets you an action point already. And then you can banish a Runeblade attack action card from your graveyard and then play it later this turn. And if that card then has go again, then you're up 1 action point. If the card doesn't have go again, then Rattlebones basically gives you the action point to play it in addition to your existing one. So Rattlebones itself nets you an action point for 2 resources and gets you the choice of your best attack action card from your graveyard, your best Runeblade attack action card. So it's a good one to have to extend and amplify your combo turns. Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath is the card that you probably want to play after your Sonata using the Runechant discount that you've got. So because you'll ideally have between 10 and 20 Runechants in play, Ninth Blade will cost 0, and it's a great way to start off your turn, come in for 9. And as long as you do have a Rattlebones or any other non-attack action that you can play off your Spellbound Creepers to get your action point back after playing your Ninth Blade, the fact that it doesn't have go again won't impact. It'll just be a great way to come in for 9 plus hopefully, 15 Runechants. That's a huge amount. That's going to be already more than your opponent can block. If you can then get your action point back and continue your turn, it's basically all damage from there that's going to hit. So Meet and Greet is a perfect card for these combo turns. Because you have dealt arcane damage from your Sonata, it will have go again. And if it hits, it creates a Runechant token, and it's a pretty efficient 1-for-4 attack. So it's just a 1-for-4, it's got go again, it's going to extend your turn. It's a Runeblade card, so it'll create a Runechant from Viserai. And it's always going to have go again on that turn with a little on-hit trigger as well. So Spellbound Creepers, which I mentioned, is a really important way to extend this combo turn, and it's going to be usable on the combo turn, plus because you're dealing arcane damage from Sonata, it's going to survive to the next turn to help you make your next turn big as well. And because you're putting so many cards into your hand with Sonata, you're probably going to have an arsenal, which means you have a 5-card hand the following turn to help press some additional damage. Morven Skies is another great role player. It can help you to give your Ninth Blade go again. You can play it off creepers as well to net an additional action point. And it's just a great way to extend your combo turns. And it's a blue if you need that as well. Rune Flash is just always going to be close to free. You can sequence your turns because you've played Sonata. Viserai is going to be triggering. If you do have a Mordred Tide as well at the start of the turn, everything you play is going to generate 2 Runechants from Viserai alone, plus any additional Runechants that you generate from Meet and Greet's on-hit trigger, for example. So getting to 3 Runechants on each chain link is not too hard, but you'll certainly be able to get to at least 2 Runechants on most chain links to make Rune Flash cost at most 1, but a lot of the time it'll be a 0-for-4 go again on that combo turn. So it's a great one to see off your Sonata. Become the Arknight is another really good one to have if you don't have a Rattlebones or a Morven Skies. You can get your action point back using Spellbound Creepers and become the Arknight after you attack with your Ninth Blade, for example. And then you can pitch an attack action card from your hand because you're flush with attack actions to go and tutor for any non-attack from your deck that you want. So you can go tutor for a Mordred Tide if that'll help to extend your turn and get you additional damage from the Runechants from all these Runeblade attacks you're playing. Or else you can go and get a Rattlebones to get you an additional attack in that turn if you just got heaps of blues in hand and you want some more action points. Or you can go get a Morven Skies. It's just a nice toolbox card that lets you turn an attack action into a non-attack on your combo turn. It's also a really good card to have in your deck because it blocks for 3 as a non-attack action, which is pretty rare. And before your combo turn, you can use it to tutor for your Sonata if you really need to find Sonata. It's kind of like Sonata copies 4 to 6 as well. Rouse the Ancients is a great one. Unfortunately, it attacks for 0 normally. Sorry that the power's cut off there. But obviously on your combo turn, when you're drawing an additional 4 or 5 cards, ideally, you should have the 13 power worth of attacks in your hand to trigger Rouse the Ancients ability, even once you've played your Ninth Blade out, maybe with Rattlebones or maybe just naturally from your hand. You should still hopefully have enough power to trigger Rouse the Ancients. And if you can get another 3 cost 7 power go again attack in on that combo turn, it can make a huge difference. So I do like to have one of these in the deck. Enlightened Strike is another really good one. If you're flush with action points and if you've got enough, then you can use it to draw a card and maybe draw into another non-attack action, which can then extend your turn even further. Or if you're not flush with action points, but you're flush with cards, then you can use it flexibly. As we know, Enlightened Strike is great and it's extremely flexible. That's where its power comes from. You can use it as a 5 power go again, spending 2 cards, which you will have quite a few of on your combo turn. So it's certainly a nice one to have on the combo turn, and just a nice one as well to have low in your deck even after your combo turn to help make your following turns impactful. So other role players in the deck, I know that was I'll go back to that. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of things going on there, but you can see that if you slot all these things together and sequence your combo turn well, you can put out a huge amount of damage. As I mentioned, just the Runechants you've accumulated plus 9th Blade will probably overwhelm their initial defenses. And then anything else you do beyond that, your Rouse the Ancients, Meet and Greet, Rune Flash, Enlightened Strikes, all that's just going to be hitting them, through a full hand of blocks. So you can see how you can easily get up towards 20, 30, even 40 damage on those key turns, particularly if they don't have a great hand for blocking. And then you need to keep the pressure on the subsequent turns as well, which Creepers helps with. So other role players in the deck, card that it's good to have in there. Dread Triptych is just an efficient blue, it blocks for 3. It's a 3 cost 4 power attack, which is not super efficient, but it generates a few Runechants. So it can be a good one to even play on turn 1. Otherwise, it's just not a bad attack to have in your deck on your combo turn as well. It can help to, create Runechants to play your Rune Flashes for free, for example. Or even help you end that combo turn with a few Runechants in play. That's not too bad as well. Amplify the Arknight is a basically free 6 power attack if you've got a few Runechants in play. So again, if you do happen to get a Mordred Tide on your combo turn, and each chain link you're sort of starting with 2 to 3 Runechants, Amplify the Arknight can just be a great way to take advantage of that with another pretty powerful attack, and it happens to pop Phantasms as well. Gorganian Tome is just a nice card that replaces itself. There are obviously a lot of other decks playing Gorganian Tome, so sometimes you draw 2 cards off it, but if you do happen, it's also a non-attack action that draws you a card, so on those turns where you're accumulating Runechants, it's a way to get Viserai's ability live, because you play Gorganian Tome, which is a non-attack action, and then any subsequent Runeblade cards you play will create a Runechant from Viserai's ability, so it can help you to get those chains going as well. Energy Potion is something that you can play because, as I mentioned, you're not attacking on a lot of your turns. So oftentimes you'll just block with everything and pass. Sometimes you might just prefer to block with 3 cards and play an Energy Potion so that on your combo turn you have more resources available. It is risky to include cards that don't block. So you've got Gorganian Tome already, which I mentioned, which you might play. If you play too many potions, you might end up with hands with too many things that don't block, which could cause you problems if your opponent's presenting lots of on-hit triggers that you really want to block on that particular turn. So be careful with potions, but they definitely can play a role in a combo deck like this. Similarly, Time Snap Potion, getting those extra action points on your combo turn can be great, but again, the risky side of potions and the downside is the lack of block in a deck like this. Sideboard. Arknight Ascendancy can be really good to help you close out a game after you combo, particularly against defensive decks. So against Guardians, having the Dominate, they're probably going to use their equipment on your combo turn to block as much as they can. Then you can take advantage of Dominate on Arknight Ascendancy, particularly in combination with, say, 1 red Slogism. If you put that in your deck and always pitch it to the bottom, you then know that if you draw an Arknight Ascendancy and a red Slogism together in the late game, then you're going to be able to hit them for, 11 Dominate with a powerful on-hit trigger as well. So that can just be a nice finisher to have in your sideboard to include against those more defensive decks, just to make sure that you can close out the game after you combo off, because otherwise you can get fatigued. Command and Conquer similarly, obviously a role player against a lot of different decks, not always a starter in this deck because you're not attacking and playing that kind of tempo game, and it doesn't really help you on your combo turn that much, but yeah, certainly you sometimes want to include it in particular matchups where it's important to have, and against Prism having a few more 6 attacks doesn't hurt. Sigil of Suffering I mentioned earlier kind of goes into the mix with those other defense reactions as something you might want to play. So the equipment, I don't know how hell of elimination made in there. Arknight Skullcap and Grasp of the Arknight are the 2 kind of starting equipment that you'll think of, plus of course Spellbound Creepers and Bloodsheath Skeletor that I've mentioned earlier. So Arknight Skullcap, it's just armor, which you need, because if you can get that 3 block off, which you generally will be able to because you'll be behind on life for much of the game, it's just going to help you stay alive that little bit longer, as will the 3 block from the Grasp of the Arknight. You'll also, obviously, Runechants being very important to your game plan. Sometimes on your combo turn or even on turn 1, getting that Runechant generation from Grasp of the Arknight can be nice. Bloodshieth Skeletor and Spellbound Creepers play huge roles in the deck, which we've already covered. If you want to play on a budget with no legendaries, Ironrod Helm, Goliath Gauntlet, and Snapdragon Scalers can sub in. Snapdragon Scalers does a good impression of Spellbound Creepers, giving an Enlightened Strike or something else go again, although the restriction of attack action card with cost 1 or less can be quite restrictive in this deck, given that a lot of your attacks do cost more, so you can't give your 9th Blade go again with Snappies, for example. But you can E-Strike, draw a card, and give it go again with Snapdragons, which can help on a combo turn. Goliath Gauntlet can help, particularly if you're siding in the Arknight Ascendancy, and Ironrod Helm is just another block which helps you stay alive until you can combo off. So that's what I'd suggest as a non-legendary budget build that can still let you take advantage of the powerful combo between Sonata and Skeletor. So in summary, the Sonata combo is central to your game plan, so build around that, think about it. You don't have to get up to 15 or 20. You can, if you want to, combo off a little bit earlier with 8 or 10 Runechants if the game calls for it. You can also play a bit of a sparring game early just to get the life totals down a bit, so that you don't need to press through so much damage later in the game. If you think that by playing that sparring game and getting the life totals down, you're still going to have time to set up, at least 10 Runechants ideally for the Sonata turn. So yeah, you don't have to just never attack from the start of the game. You can, as I've said there, build up a pile of Runechants from the start, or attack regularly and play mid-range, and then use your Sonata combo to try and have a kind of a pivot turn and one particularly strong turn. Ideally with around 8 to 10 Runechants at least. Set up an effective combo turn by balancing the bottom of your deck. Think about what you're pitching. Ideally pitch alternating attack, non-attack action, so that when you do Sonata, you've got those really good ratios on the bottom of your deck. And use your Mordred Tides effectively. Don't block with Mordred Tide if you can avoid it. Put it in your arsenal, play it to at least have a bigger Read the Runes turn or a bigger Rune Blood barrier turn. Or ideally have it on your combo turn. So that brings us to the end of Viserai. I hope that you have enjoyed this kind of primer on how to think about the combo. I mean, everything I've described there, obviously when you've got a combo that's putting heaps of cards into your hand, there's heaps of different directions you can go with it, and there's lots of Runeblade. The Runeblade card pool's huge, and the generic card pool's huge, so there are lots of other things you can pull from and use to improve that combo turn. But I hope that's given you at least a starting primer on how to think about the deck and how to play with Viserai. And I look forward to hearing from you how you go, whether you love Viserai and you've been playing it and you've got some other suggestions, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, if you are picking it up now and looking to take it into the ProQuest season, do let me know how you go. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.